This time on Custom Works, it's all about the pickup bed. We're putting a great new pickup bed on the A40. Let's get to the workshop. Alright, and so, making the pickup bed on the truck, quite lucky on this because we've put these two massive braces in, so I've affixed quite a lot of this waterproof plywood onto there. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make a plywood box that I'm going to skin over it in dye bond because, you know, that's nice and straight and like car-like. I fixed some strips of plywood, which I've ripped down, and I've attached those to the steel frame. And what I've attached those with, I've put them on with wood screws, but not just any wood screw. If you drill a pilot hole, even in quite thick steel, wood screws such as spats, I have some of here, or Screwfix's Turbo Gold, if you pilot drill, they will act as a self-tapper, and they're countersunk as well, so everything's nice and flat. They're really good. That's what I've done. I've screwed all of this on, it's super secure, and this side I've actually got one of the sides on. Around to this side, I almost have this ready. I've had to make some cutouts down here to get around this bit of chassis and the spring mount. I've obviously cut a nice big arch so the axle's got room to move. I've just got to whip a bit out of here to get around this box section. And then that goes on there. And also, another thing this does, it just brings it out a little bit, so it clears loads of things down the chassis, some bolts and stuff. But by doing it like this, I managed to get a nice sort of flat plane. I've made this pickup bed, and this is just 18mm plywood, and then it's been covered in dye bond. Obviously, you know, we'll be going over this in there'll be some bits of fiberglass, quite a bit of filling just to get it all smooth and nice. And some parts, like here, still aren't quite finished off. Got to just decide what I'm doing with the bottom there. But it's dye bond, so, you know what I mean? You can swap things around a bit. Plywood, clad in dye bond, then we put these details to it. Made a bit of a bumper detail here, so it didn't look too slab-backed. And we've also created a rolled pan that rolls round, and at the moment these clamps are clamping it to a bit of a steel framework, which I will probably show you next time. It's all looking pretty good up to now. Don't forget there will be fiberglass and finishing on all of this, you know, can't just build a car out of wood. But yeah, looking pretty damn good. So then, we've been doing a lot of work on this pickup bed. It's a funny thing, so there's like a lot to cover, and you've got to make a pickup bed. So if we look just here, I've put this sort of ridge around the edge of everything just to give it a bit more, so, you know, a bit more detail, so it's not just a slab side. And also just here was part of the front spring hanger. So just in dye bond, I've made this box, but all of this will be glassed over. And I use dye bond a lot, and for things such as this where it's a panel made of plywood that I can just cover over, it's always going to be strong enough. However, things like this, you know, this would break pretty easy, so this will all be glassed over. What I've also done, and I've no idea why, someone had cut this rear bottom part of this this body off to give it this strange kick up. And after looking at several pictures of the Auston A40, not how they were. So I've made this piece in dye bond, and this will be glassed in as well. Really, the dye bond here, all it's doing is providing a support for the fiberglass that I'll build this corner and this section up in. Also on the back of this, what I've done here is I've levelled up the bottom with this piece here, and then at the end I've added this circular piece because that is where the bolt for the rear spring hanger is. Now, I want this to be removable, so I'll make that a detail of the pickup bed and make that a removable piece, and I've done the same on the other side. So if you ever need to adjust the rear spring hanger height, it's easily accessible through there. Right, also on this rear rolled pan or valance, I bonded this piece of like 15mm box section to the bottom to make this nice and strong. And then what I've done, I've tied that in to the back of the mount for the tow bar, and that is all super strong now. And I think this is where the lights are going to go. So I'll probably French the lights, not tunnel, just French, just set them back a little bit so they're not just like some old Land Rover lights just stuck on. I'll sink those in there, and like I say, now I've bonded that piece of box section in. It's nice and strong, but it's a really easy way to make a roll panel. And to roll this, all I did was I clamped my large spirit level straight edge to the bench, packed it off a little bit, and then just you know, bent it round underneath that. No special tools or anything, but when this is all filled and prepped and painted, it's going to look great. Right, so what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be sorting this bumper out. Now, I've put the bumper on the back just to break up this panel, because this just would have looked like, you know, this is too long for one flat panel. There's no amount of like sort of detail I could have put on that would have made it look right. So I broke it up with this bumper. Now, what I'm going to be doing is forming this into a bumper shape. Now, a bumper has a lot of curves. So it's going to have to curve from here and out nicely, and then it's going to have to sweep round here in a nice lazy curve, and then as it goes across the back of the car, there needs to be a certain amount of curve in it to go across, you know, the back. Nothing's ever dead straight on a car, and already this pickup bed is in the style of the pickup bed the car would have had originally, but it is very boxy. And just to bring a little bit of curve to that, to bring a little bit of like real carness, if that's the phrase, I'm going to make this bumper have that gentle curve and then curve around the sides and just return onto this side panel and make it a nice shape. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to make the main profile from dye bond, and then essentially I'm just going to fill everything else with filler. I'm going to surform all that down and get the shape right. Now, as I always say, you can't just make things out of dye bond and filler, especially things that might get knocked. So after that, I'll cover all of that in fiberglass resin, then smooth that out, and it will look, you know, it will look professional, it will look right, but it will also look as, you know, kind of factory, or as factory as anything ever does on a radically modified car. So let's get to it. Let's get some dye bond out, let's get some Bondo out, let's make that bumper. So what I've done, I've glued this dye bond onto here, and now I'm going to be cutting this into the shape of the front leading edge of the bumper, so I can shape this into that sort of teardrop bumper shape and make it look really cool. So let's cut this into a lovely profile. You know, sculpting a lot of filler, it's worth staying with it. Staying with it as it goes off. At the minute, you know, this is really soft and it's just gone on. But it will get to a point where I'll be able to use the Surform really easily, and it's like grating cheese. And by using that, I'll be able to get the shape that I want without a lot of dust, a few sort of shavings. So I'm going to stay with this and wait for it to go off a bit. Right, so that is nearly, it's sort of getting there. You can tell, it sort of gets warm and still a bit soft, it's nearly there. Now one thing, if ever you go in a little bit too soon with, I would always recommend just for shaping, and if you ever get to see Automatron, my car that won Best in Britain, oh yeah, I was sculpted with, actually with this, one of these, the whole thing. Just a little shaped Surform, it's sculpted by eye. It's about £4 piece of kit. But sometimes you'll go in a little bit too early and the filler's not quite dry and this gets all clogged up. But just have a wire wheel in the angle grinder, you can just clean all that out and they're good to go again. Obviously just do this a few times. These blades are pennies, so I swap them out all the time just to make sure they're still nice and sharp. But if you ever do go in a little bit too early, wire thing in the angle grinder cleans it up lovely. Right, let's do some sculpting. So now we've got the nice shape of a bumper. Tapers in nice, got its nice shape around the tow bar, comes in and it tapers up to the body nice. And what we'll do with this, we'll paint this so it looks like aluminium to match in with what's going to be like this truck's sort of signature colour. It's going to be like a metallic-y grey colour, and it's going to have black wheels, and then it's going to have some accents of aluminium in like the dash, the grille, stuff like that. So, and also on the tonneau cover, it's going to be very special. So we've done this, and this is all in 40 grit. Now, as I've said before, I've literally just made this out of wooden filler and dye bond, and it's really, really solid. I'm still going to go over this with some fiberglass tissue and resin, and that will just make sure it's waterproof and that nothing can ever expand inside it, and just make sure it's super tough. And I'll give it its final skim of filler and finish it ready for primer and paint. Okay, and so I need to put some lights in, and what I've got these like what they're meant to be on a Series 1 Land Rover, or maybe just thousands of early British cars. Got some of these lights. I'm going to mount them in the roll pan there. So it'll be indicator, brake light, indicator, brake light. So I don't just want to screw them flat on the panel. I want to French them in a little bit so they look the proper job. And also makes the panel look a lot less like I've just bent a bit of dye bond around. You know, the whole thing of building a car from scratch, try not to make it look like you've just bent stuff around and made like just a curved edged box. So I'm going to French them in. So what I need is something perfect to French them in, and I'm hoping something ready made. Okay then, so to French these lights, I could get this piece of tube, cut off piece of tube for the amount I want it sunk in, weld a plate on, drill a hole, and then mount that in. That sounds like a right load of work, so I'm not going to be doing that. Instead, what I'm going to use is a bean can, something like that, and I'm going to fit literally perfectly into there. So first up, what I'll do, I'll drill a hole in there so that this piece goes through and I can get that fixed into the bottom. and then I'll start thinking about just how much I want it French. Now, this isn't, you know, it's not a lowrider custom. It's a sort of gasser weekend racer in a 60s style. So I'm not going to tunnel them in. I'm just going to set them down, I don't know, probably like 25mm into the body, so we can see a bit of this sticking out and it's not too deep down. So let's do that. Right, so there we go. That fits in there nicely, and you can see there's a light down at the bottom. So now I'm going to cut this off so it looks, you know, so some of the light is protruding. And I think on here, as I count, I'm going to go 1, probably 2. You know what? I'm going to go three ribs up. I'm going to cut it off there and see what that looks like. I might go down 1 more, but I'll just see. And there we go. That sits nicely in there. Doesn't look like we've just bolted an old Land Rover light on the back of the car. And what I'll do now, I'll drill a hole in the bodywork. I will mount this bit of beam can in there. And of course, people might be saying, you can't use a bit of beam can as part of a car. But, you know what I mean? It's the most rust-proof piece of metal you're ever going to get. And it'll fit in, it'll just go on really nice. And one more thing I am going to do to it though, just because it's so rust proof, and this is probably like some sort of, you know, tin plate, I'm going to rough that up with the sander, so that when it's at the back of the panel, I can bond it in and it's not going to come away. Okay then, so I've marked out where the lights are going to go, and now what I'm going to do, using this hole saw, which is, I reckon it's going to be about perfect, I'm going to drill some holes in there and we'll mount them in. I will mitre fix that into place, and then I'll fiberglass it to the rear of the panel so that it's super strong and it's never going to drop out and we're not going to get any cracking around it. Right, so we've bonded the beam cans in and there they are. It's all still a bit wet and wobbly at the minute, but they should just house those lights really nice. Just a nice, quick, easy way to fit some cheap lights and make everything look more than the sum of its parts. So that's it for this week. Next week we're going to be going in on the bodywork, trying to get all those wonky panels nice and straight. Until then, don't forget to click subscribe, leave a comment down below, click the bell icon for regular updates and give us a big thumbs up in the comments. Until then, thank you very much and good night.